more and more blows coming to the latest AARO report saying, nothing to see here, there's no crash retrieval, go on about your day, it's just a bunch of misidentified projects. And then, of course, they don't actually back anything up with what they're saying. And anyone who's been looking into this, even for a little bit of time, knew that it was a complete fabrication of lies. They were going to only touch on a little portion of what they could prove and ignore the rest and hope that would satisfy everyone. So then on April 22nd, Christopher Mellon dropped this on his Substack page. And it was really interesting. It was originally part of a FOIA request, and they did release this conversation, or a piece of this conversation from 2020 is when it happened. And it reads, "Blank and I are making huge progress getting into the crash retrieval program. He plans to meet with you at some point." Chris gives it a thumbs up. "The blank would be slack-jawed if they found out what we know." Christopher has a long reply that's all been redacted. And it says here he's talking to a senior USG official. And they say, "Right now we haven't gone that far back. We're dealing with the recovered UAP that landed in Kingman, Arizona in the 50s. We are vacuuming up info as blank gets read in. We now know the management structure and security control systems and ownership of the crash retrieval. We also know who recovers landed or crashed UAPs under what authorities. We also know that a still highly classified memo by a Secretary of the United States Air Force in the 1950s is still in effect to maintain the cover on UAPs. We also know that SES-2, who's the Air Force gatekeeper, blank, and they've made a note that the name has been redacted, but it's been provided to Congress. So Congress knows exactly what is going on here. The question is, what are they actually going to do about it? Because right now, I think they're just spinning their wheels, trying to get to the bottom of it, trying to see what they're doing with the money they're given and that sort of thing. And in my opinion, that's very base level. It's time to just open this thing right up. Everyone's talking about catastrophic disclosure. And even though they don't want that to happen, I think that's how it's going to be. And in my opinion, this whole thing isn't going to be blown wide open by the government anyways. It's going to come from the people who have or are working on these projects with these private corporations, or the people in charge coming out and blowing the whistle, so to speak. Because the people that have covered this up since the 1940s are going to be fighting tooth and nail to keep it that way. According to lots of the whistleblowers out there, and you can go and look up these videos and do the research yourself, it's not just a matter of we're hiding this technology for ourselves. Yeah, sure, we could help humanity, but it's what they're doing with it as well. And the illegal operations they have going on worldwide that are funding these projects. And it's just about them maintaining their power, their control, and their money, and leaving us in the dust. Now back to this. Well, obviously anyone could write this, take a screenshot, and make it look like a real conversation, but this was in the actual Department of Defense files. And here's a scan of it here, and you can see it was cleared to be in the public as of March 1st, 2024. And this was a conversation, like I said, in 2020. So this isn't just Christopher Mellon just putting this together. This is an actual conversation that's been going on. So then my question was, well, what about this UAP from Kingman, Arizona in the 50s? I hadn't heard that story because it seems when the UAP topic comes up, it's always the same stories that get rehashed over and over again. And I also think that's part of the gatekeeping where everyone always just thinks, oh, this has happened a couple of times, no big deal. But I'm willing to bet it's happened many more times than they let on. And luck should have it, I didn't have to look too far to find out what this UAP deal was about that they mentioned in Arizona here, because Richard Dolan had Michael Schratt on his show pretty much right after this came out and was able to dive deep into this UAP. So I'll leave a link to this video below. Chances are you've probably seen this video before you find this video, but anyways, that's the YouTube algorithm for you. So what Michael goes on to say is they were testing out a new high-powered radar, and this seems to coincide with a lot of the other stories that are out there, is whether it was on purpose or by accident or accident on purpose, where high-powered radars were being tested, and that's what brought these crafts down. In this case, it was a forced landing. This UAP had flown through this radar range and essentially lost control in a way, or full control, obviously, because they were able to land the craft safely. So this is a really good video. Of course, all of Richard's are. And Michael comes in around the 20-minute mark or so in this 50-minute video, and he goes through his slideshow. He's got 3D images, the mappings, and how it worked, and how they transported the thing, extra details. I know it's funny, he talks about, the military just told everyone, this is just an experimental craft, it's one of ours, don't worry about it. But then, you see a hatch opening that's 3.5 feet high, 1.5 feet wide, not really made for a full-grown human, right? So anyways, it's really interesting. Give it a watch. So these are the details on the crash retrieval in Arizona in the 1950s that these text messages are referencing. And it is another reminder that not all crash retrievals are crashes, right? This was a forced landing. It was a perfectly working condition UAP that had to land. And according to other whistleblowers, they've talked about similar situations like this, or they're finding crafts in an archaeological dig. So not all crash retrievals are crashes. And I think, again, that's done on purpose because it gets people thinking, well, if they're so advanced, why do they keep crashing? It's like, well, they're not. They're not always crashing. So anyways, there's a sum up of that. Give it a watch. I'm really hoping some of the media like News Nation is going to cover something like this. Obviously, we know the mainstream isn't going to do it, but I actually first heard of this on Christian Harloff's channel, which is really interesting. I thought News Nation or even Ross Coulthart would be all over this. Maybe they're just taking their time. They're doing their due diligence and making sure it's, a worthy news segment. So it'll be interesting to see what happens out of that. Because I think if they don't report on this, then they're not any better than the rest of the media. That's just completely ignoring it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.